Okay, so in this video we'll go through the searching of specific fields within the system, looking at the candidate search as our example, but essentially everything that I'll go through is consistent with the company context and requirement search also. But before touching on the specific field searching that is possible from the search, if I just want to go quickly to the admin area just to show the data dictionary. So the data dictionary can be quite a complicated area of the system in terms of the functionality that's available here, but the key option that I want to draw attention to is the allow search column. So off the entity list, because we're looking at the candidate search, I'm going to select candidate here, and then what that does is it gives you a list of all of the fields that are in the system that are essentially linked with the candidate entity, and some of these will be visible on the page and others will be hidden in the background, but you'll notice that there's a column here called allow search. And essentially what that is a yes/no column or yes/no option that you can set, defining whether or not these fields are searchable. So if you're looking for a field to be searchable, which it is not when you're within the candidate search and scrolling down these fields, this is the area in which you could set that option to be searchable by setting that from no to yes within here, and that's an option for all administrators within Colleague 7. Okay, so the first field type we're going to cover is lookups. Lookups are the field option where you basically have a multiple selection for a single option against a field. So when you are within a record, as an example here from a candidate, you'll have fields where they're basically drop-down lists, and you can choose a single option from that list to populate that field. The example that we'll use within the candidate search will be the status field. So within here you can see that status field has these options within here. There is also the option against custom fields to have a multiple selection option here as well, and that also encompasses what I'll be showing you now with regards to lookup fields. But going back to the candidate search, and if we go down to the candidate status here, what you'll see is that all of the options that are available as a lookup within a record are available there to search against, and essentially once you click on that option, you're going to find that the found count will quickly do a check to see how many records have that particular type of status assigned to the record. Now it works on OR logic, so if you select more than one and several in fact, it will essentially increment that count, including all the other records that are using per record there can only be one status option selected here, so it will be an addition to it. It will be OR logic additions as you add extra statuses to the search. Also to draw attention to the fact that against every lookup field that's on the system, there'll be a no value option at the top here. So that will essentially give you a list of all of the records where no status has been assigned in this scenario. But basically any lookup field will have a no value option against the search, so you can see whether or not that field has been populated. But that covers the lookup fields. The next field type to cover are yes/no fields. So these are scenarios in the system where the option for a field is simply a case of yes or no. You have only those types, and they're dealt with as basically the same as a lookup field would be in the system. So if we go to consent given, which is a yes/no field against this entity, again you have the option of yes, you have the option of no, and then you have a no value option as well, and that again works with OR logic on the basis of finding every record that either has a yes or a no assigned, and obviously then you have the null value for all instances where that field is empty basically on the system, and that's the yes/no fields. The next field to cover are text fields, so these are or alphanumeric fields, if you will. So these are scenarios where the field could contain any free text that you've typed into that field. And for these fields, you have an option of begins with, contains, or ends with as part of your search. So if we set begins with, we can enter in just the starting element of, in this case, a city that's associated with an address to this record type. We could enter actually anything that begins with a certain city, and it's going to look for that as part of the search. You've got a contains as well, so that will also find That will be the default value, but also find anything that's, if the wording is in between the city that you're trying to search, and then obviously you have the ends with there for essentially any cities where you just want to write the tail end of the city name within there. So that works for all text fields throughout the system. You've got begins with, contains, and ends with as an option there, with the default being contains. The next field type to cover are numeric fields. So these are fields that only contain a number. And for this example, we're going to use current salary. So if we select there, what you can do with numeric fields is actually do a from and to. So you can do a range search on this field. What you can do is enter in a field value just in the from count or in the from field, and that will search for everything from that amount. So everything greater than that value will then be found within the system. If you wanted to contain that within another value, for example, 20,000 here, then obviously that shrinks that number, looking for values that are between that count. If you wanted to do everything up to a certain value, then you could remove the from value, and that obviously then takes you everything up to the to field. The only thing it does do also though is going to include 0 in that amount as it's from or as it's up to 20,000. So be mindful of that, that's going to include 0 in that amount as well. But what you can also do if you wanted to do a exact match is essentially type in the same value between both, and then that will find you the exact records on the system perhaps that are looking for a very specific salary you want to look for. But that covers that's obviously the same for all numeric fields, and that covers numeric searching. The last field type to cover are date fields. So if I just clear down these results here and move on to our example field type, which will be data available. So same as the numeric field, this gives you the option to run a range-based searching because you can find records from and to within a date range. So if you're looking, same as the numeric field search essentially, if you're looking to find all records that are available from a certain date, greater than that date, then you could just put it into the from field and it will search it from there. If you're looking to put anyone up to a certain date, so all dates that are prior to this date, you can do that instead. If you obviously want to contain that to be people that are available within a date range, then you can do that as well. And just as you had it with the lookup values, you've obviously got the option here for no value as well. So you can put in no value. But if you're looking for someone with an exact date, then you can put the same date in both those fields, and it's going to find the records that have that exact date held within the date available. And again, that's the same for all date fields held within the system. So that covers all of the field types which are searchable within Colleague. What we'll now do is move on to the next video, which is text criteria searching.